Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our newest webinar. My name is Sarah Passero, and I'm here with Ais Media CEO and founder Thomas Harpointner, who will be presenting this exciting webinar titled Web Design 2016, Top 10 Trends to Attract New Customers. We love receiving your feedback, so we'll ask you to complete a quick survey at the end of our presentation. And finally, we'll be wrapping up with a special offer for our webinar attendees. We focus on providing digital marketing performance amplified. What that means is attracting, engaging, and ultimately converting. For those of you just becoming familiar with Ais Media, we're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and we specialize in performance-driven digital marketing for high-growth companies. If you're in the Atlanta area, you're always welcome to visit our office. Our work has been recognized, garnered dozens of awards, including the Best in Class Interactive Media Award for Responsive Web Design. Our insights and methodologies, such as what we're about to share with you today, have been featured on the press and news, including CNBC, Forbes, The Today Show, and many others. We've worked with hundreds of clients, ranging from leading companies, top brands, to Fortune 500 corporations. We're also grateful that many attend our webinars. With that, here's your presenter, Thomas Harpointner.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning to everybody. We are very excited to present this webinar today. In fact, this is a repeat of the webinar we did last Wednesday. We had such overwhelming positive feedback and attendance, we thought we'd run it again for those who were unable to attend last week. So thank you for joining us this morning. And as really the first webinar for 2016, the reason we picked web design top trends for this year, it's an exciting opportunity, I think, to look at a user experience and how to design for it in a way to attract, engage, and convert new customers. And when we say web design, I want to make it clear that we're not just referring to the website itself. By web design, we mean websites, landing pages, email campaigns, even social media across all sorts of devices which customers use today to become aware of your company and ultimately convert into a new customer. So, and which is why we named it web design, not website design. So we're thinking of a much bigger picture here. You know, I want to start off by quoting Avidan from Forbes, who stated that too many companies today think in terms of digital marketing. Instead, they should be thinking in terms of they should be thinking in terms of marketing in the digital world. And we thought that was a very innovative observation because, you know, as marketers, we do have a significant advantage, and that is simply that we are also all consumers. You know, we eat, sleep, and drink this stuff. We all have smartphones. We all surf the web. We all buy stuff online. We all probably purchase things from the likes of Amazon and eBay. So we do have a unique opportunity to put ourselves in the shoes of our customers today. And we all exist in a digital world. And knowing that makes a big difference, in my opinion. We created this marketing evolution illustration last year to help our clients and our webinar attendees, for instance, just kind of get a 10,000-foot overview on how the marketing world has evolved from the early 90s to where we are today and where we're going beyond 2016. You know, back in the 90s, you know, shopping and purchasing was, of course, very different. And the internet came along, and smartphones came along, and tablets, which really changed everything in terms of how consumers shop and make purchasing decisions. You know, today, you know, all consumers have become much more comfortable with their devices to the extent that they're using those devices in stores to check prices and to make feature comparison on gadgets before they make the purchase. And many of those purchases are being made in a much more comfortable setting, like the living room sofa, often even a bed or the kitchen counter. So messages today need to be crafted to engage those consumers and get their attention in all different types of settings. Now, as far as where the website comes in, we designed this integrated digital marketing model a couple of years ago. We've updated it a few times, and it's still very relevant today. You know, we could spend an entire hour speaking about this, and we often go through this with clients when we're designing marketing campaigns and websites. But for the purpose of today, I thought it would be helpful just to share the illustration so we can demonstrate the purpose the website serves as part of the entire model. And one thing I like to point out, just so you can focus on the webinar and not get too distracted trying to take notes, after today, we are right now recording this webinar and plan on posting it on our company blog and also on YouTube and across different social channels, you know, even slide shares. So you'll have access to all of these slides and all of this content, and you'll be able to review it and share it with your peers. So no worries about, you know, having to sketch all of this out. Okay, so I hope that'll be helpful to you. But back to this illustration, the website itself, you know, still serves as the center of the universe for digital marketing campaigns. Now, it may be the website, it may be landing pages for specific campaigns, but, you know, if you think about it, at the very top, you know, the icons colored in orange, you know, represent the content, the type of content that's necessary to get a customer's attention. So whether it's a car company launching a new model or a medical center that's promoting a new type of you know, technology or procedure, it's content that really fuels everything. And that content comes in a form of videos, it could be an article, it could be a webinar like this one, use cases, and many other formats. Without great content, all of these other marketing channels really fall flat. So the content ultimately fuels the marketing channels like search engine optimization campaigns or paid campaigns, display, email, even social media campaigns, you know, which ultimately drive those visitors to a landing page or a website. And if those landing pages and websites do their job, then those leads are captured or their sales are converted. And that's when the other technologies like marketing automation, CRM, or shopping cart systems take over. That's where performance is measured and analyzed. So digital marketing, and one reason why we love what we do here is it's a lot more measurable than some traditional, you know, campaigns like, you know, direct mail or billboard ads. Although they, of course, have their place, a lot of traditional marketing today, of course, drives website traffic very effectively. But, you know, when we think of this, we see this model as digital marketing and website design from a 10,000-foot view. We take all of these into consideration when it comes time to design a new site, because the site really needs to support all of these efforts and be fueled by all of this content. The design process that we use, that we've developed over the years, and again, this is an entire separate webinar in itself, and we have those available. If you're interested, ask, because we launched some of those last year. But just for the purpose of today, the reason we're sharing this illustration is to provide some insight in terms of the complexities that go into effectively designing a site, or, you know, whether it's a landing page or an entire website. It all really starts with strategy, where we have to ask ourselves, how will the performance be measured? Will it be measured in terms of sales generated off the site? Will it be measured by leads that are generated? Or maybe by phone calls that are received? If you're a doctor's office, you want those phone calls to be potential patients, obviously looking to book. If you're selling stuff online, you're probably going to measure the performance by sales made directly off the website. Or if you're a consulting firm, for instance, you might measure performance by leads generated off the website that ultimately convert into a sale. So that question has to be asked in the very beginning, you know, how will the performance be measured? And that all happens in the strategy phase before we get busy with fancy design. You know, once we understand what the goal and the strategy is, then it's time to architect the plan and look at the content that's available, the content that needs to be developed. Then we move over to visual design, coding, and development. Now, you might notice the green button there, which represents the launch of the site, should not be thought of as a finish line, but rather as a major milestone. Because if the site is designed and launched and everyone goes away to party and doesn't pay attention to what's happening next, then we're really just halfway there. When a site is launched, the first thing that needs to take place is, of course, outside of quality assurance and making sure that everything works and loads quickly, we need to make sure that the site is actually doing what it was designed to do. And with almost 20 years of experience in this industry, I will tell you, when a site launches, it represents a major milestone. It is by far not the finish line, because incremental and iterative improvements really need to be made to make sure that all cylinders are properly firing. So when the marketing kicks in to promote the website, that's when performance optimization and tweaking of graphics, tweaking of content, A/B split testing really begins. And that's where these iterative improvements are made, and changes to design and architecture even, and most definitely content need to be made. So I think the big takeaway here is consider the launch of a website as a major milestone, not as a finish line, and set those expectations for your team and the bosses potentially right up front so there's no disappointment. So as we move on to the first phase really in marketing, and that is attracting new customers, and by that we mean attracting their attention. And designing a site to attract their attention means a couple of things. First off, we have to think of mobile, and mobile represents number one of the top 10 big trends for 2016. Now, you might say, well, mobile is not necessarily new to the scene. Why is this a big trend? It's not a breakthrough. It's not a new idea. And you're absolutely right if you're thinking that. However, something has changed. Mobile, last year, mobile internet traffic has surpassed desktop internet traffic, meaning that the amount of customers and users that access sites and content online on their mobile devices is now suddenly far greater than those who are accessing the same content on their desktop PCs. So this, it shouldn't be a surprise, right? Because as we can see from this illustration, we've seen this coming. But suddenly it happened in 2015, right in the middle of the year. And for marketers that were ahead of the curve, they decided to make investments in better mobile technology on their site and redesign their websites to cater to these customers, and they got ahead of the game. And if you're one of those, fantastic. Congratulations, really. If you got it done just in time before the end of the year, then you were right at the crossroads. And if you're just getting started or at an early stage, it really is time to make it a huge priority, because with customers accessing sites and content on mobile devices, if the experience suffers, it becomes very difficult to even get their attention. I mean, consider this. You can't buy what you can't read, or even worse, what you can't see. And today, many websites and email campaigns and other types of campaigns are simply squeezed into small mobile devices. They're very difficult to read. They take a long time to load. They frustrate users. And as a result, the performance of those marketing campaigns is very low. A lot of money is being wasted simply because customers are unable to read the message, or they become too impatient for the page to even load. So, does your site pass Google's mobile-friendly test? In April of 2015, Google updated its search algorithm, and Google simply took a position on this and said, look, guys, if your site loads too slowly on a mobile device, if it doesn't load properly, if it frustrates users, we're going to de-rank you. So, a lot of marketers saw this as punishment, but in reality, Google's customer is the user. And if users click on links that don't load, or load irrelevant content, or that content doesn't display properly, Google's fear is that those users may simply leave and move over to the likes of Yahoo or Bing or just find other ways of getting to the content. So Google's top priority is always to serve the consumer, the actual user. So is it a little bit of a punishment to a marketer? Maybe, but we could certainly see it as an opportunity. So Google's mobile-friendly algorithm rolled out last spring. They do have a test available. We embraced it. We analyze websites all day long, and we're willing to do it for free. So even at the end of this webinar, if you'd like us to analyze your website against Google's mobile-friendly algorithm along with some other tests, we'll even do it for free for you. And that way, if you're trying to build a business case, for your higher-ups or for your team to get behind a more mobile-centric strategy, this might be very helpful. You'll get a report, and one of the pages in the report will simply tell you yes or no. Is your website mobile friendly? Is it not? If not, here's some issues that need to be corrected, and whether you do that internally or hire us or somebody else to do it. I mean, that's really the first step. Make sure your site is mobile friendly. And again, this isn't necessarily new news, but for 2016, it's an absolute must. It's no longer something that's nice to have. It is a must-have because the mobile traffic is now surpassed desktop internet traffic. It's no longer coming. It's here. As far as the second trend goes, designing to be found locally. Okay, so we know the site needs to be mobile-friendly and load quickly, but users today still rely mostly on search engines to find what they're looking for, whether it's a local doctor, a local bank branch, a local restaurant. Most searches today have very high local intent. The users that are searching for a particular product or service locally do have very high intention of purchasing. Think about it. You're one of those consumers. When you search for a local hair salon or a local Italian restaurant or maybe a local doctor's office, there's a good possibility that you're going to make that purchase, right? You want that Italian food, or you need that eye exam, or you're looking for a local ATM. There's a real purpose behind it. So if you can't find what you're looking for, that business is being deprived of revenue. If you are able to easily find what you're looking for, well, then kudos to those businesses. So, these customers are increasingly making these decisions based on proximity and timing. Why drive 10 miles out of your way if there's a local business right in your neighborhood, a local bagel shop, a local coffee shop, or a local bank branch, right? And timing has a lot to do with it because, is that business open? Are their hours of operation obvious? So these are all questions on the minds of consumers. Where can I get it? Is it available now? I don't want to waste time in traffic. So think of what's going on in the mobile user's mind as you're walking around, driving around. They want things. They want them now. In fact, 94% of mobile users look for local information on their phone, and of course, because they're on the go. It's their pocket PC, right? So when Google updated its map, and this happened a few years ago, they're still updating it on a regular basis. Now, the businesses, and this isn't necessarily new news, the businesses are displayed directly on the map. But what has happened, which is relatively new, is you might notice in this example that some of these locations are highlighted in bold, some locations are not. And frankly, there are many, many businesses that simply don't even appear on the Google map. So imagine if you're an eye clinic and you have 10 or 12 locations and some of them don't even show up, or if you're a restaurant with multiple locations and they don't show up, or if you're a coffee shop and you don't appear on the map or you don't appear bold. Why is that actually happening? And one reason is that ratings and reviews, of course, weigh very heavily on consumer decisions. And when it's time to design a website, circling back to how this ties into design in terms of building awareness, if a website isn't properly designed with and it's not optimized locally, and the maps aren't properly integrated into a website, if that goal right here is an afterthought during the design process, it become very frustrating, time-consuming, and expensive to fix it after the launch. So when it's time to design or redesign a website, by all means, sure, invite the designers, because designers have great ideas and visuals are very important. But understand, what the marketing goal is and what the business goal is. And we can't really blame a website designer exclusively if these things are missed because, they're not marketers, right? So from a business and marketing standpoint, we need to know whether or not that business ought to show up on the map, whether the purpose is to drive phone calls or to drive traffic to the business. All of that is very important. So, invite everybody to the table, the designers, the business leader, and of course the marketing team. Let's make sure everyone has a seat at the table so these decisions are made ahead of time. Here are some implications. When a site isn't designed with SEO in mind, or to rank highly in organic search, for instance, rankings suffer, and when rankings suffer, traffic suffers. If traffic suffers, sales and leads suffer. So reverse engineering this problem can be costly. It's better to deal with it up front, as I mentioned. And bad SEO signals represent things like broken links, 404 errors, 301 redirects, and for those on a call today that are incredibly technical, those 404 errors are those type when you click a link and the page doesn't load, or it's broken, or redirects don't work. Missing images, for instance. All of those things are very frustrating to users, not very helpful, and ultimately cost a company a lot of money in terms of lost leads and revenue. So again, let's make sure that if getting traffic and getting phone calls and getting leads and driving sales, if all of those things are a priority, they need to be considered at the strategy phase, right up front, not after the fact. Right, now moving on to number 3, 3 being design unique content for each stage in the customer journey. Now, not to get too philosophical here, what do we mean by customer journey? We simply mean that customers go through a process when they make purchase decisions. And that journey is sometimes more complex and more complicated for bigger purchases like cars and homes. That sales process may start months ahead of time. Most consumers shop for houses months and months before they actually make the decision, right? If you've been there, you know what I mean. Most car purchase decisions are made within about 30 days. Most gadget decisions may take a week or two, unless you're buying iPhone, because Apple is going to pump that 6 months, 8 months ahead of time, right? So the buying journey takes a long time for certain types of purchases. So when we ask ourselves, well, how do we help that customer make that decision, or how do we deter that customer from making the decision to go with a competitor? Well, what do we need to do? Well, we do need content, right? Because content is the thing that encourages or discourages a customer from making that buying decision. And the type of content varies across the board. We created this illustration a few years ago to help a few of our clients. And it was so successful in the boardroom and with higher ups, we decided, well, let's share it with everybody and even share it with the public. And you might find this useful internally today. And of course, this is also a 10,000-foot view. We could do a really, really deep dive into content marketing, which we can't do today. But from a simple standpoint, if you think of content and the different formats of content, content can take, of course, photos, videos, webinars, articles. All of those are different formats of content. You could take a webinar like this and write an article, even potentially a book, right, an ebook. We can certainly record it as we are today, and we can put it out on YouTube. So content can take up many different types of formats. The point here is that though in the different stages of the buying process, awareness, consideration, decision, different types of content are more effective at different stages of the journey. Photos and videos, webinars like this today are very effective at the awareness stage. Calculators, case studies, trend reports, white papers, not very effective at an early stage. You know, Apple doesn't give you a big white paper on the new iPhone, you know, before it's released, right? They usually entice us with fancy commercials, illustrations, write-ups, press releases even, or, you know, the press and media certainly loves to speculate about those things, right? Videos are very engaging. They're easy to watch on phones and social media. So, you know, think of it, it's the type of content that's easy to consume that's the most effective at the early stage of the process. You know, as customers begin to narrow down their choices, that's when other type of content, you know, like demo videos or feature guides or interactive videos and e-newsletters become more effective. And then ultimately, you know, those loan calculators, you know, they show up at, you know, on the automotive website and mortgage company and bank websites as customers become, you know, get closer to actually pulling the trigger and making a purchase. So now, depending on the type of business you're in, you can move these chips around on the board, and some of them may not even be relevant in your industry or in your company. You might say, well, there's no real purpose for a feature guide with what we're selling. If you're, let's say, you're in a business of, you know, cosmetic dentistry, some of these may be completely irrelevant. Nevertheless, it's helpful to take these into consideration and ask yourself, you know, is this content that we should provide? Do we have this content already? And if so, if we don't have the content that we need, you know, let's make that part of our agenda. So with, you know, as far as web design goes, content is incredibly important in, you know, providing a great online experience. And it's the lack of content that's the #1 problem when it comes to designing for the web, whether it's a landing page, an email campaign, and an all-out website. It's always the lack of content that tends to slow down marketing programs. So hopefully, if you're a campaign manager or a VP of marketing, maybe you can get some value from this tool and sit with your team and say, hey, let's do a content inventory, see what we have, what's relevant, what's not, before we start embarking in this design process. And one thing that you might find very interesting, of course, is when you ask yourself, well, what type of content has the greatest impact moving customers along? It's no surprise that it's pictures. Pictures are very effective. Now, in fact, think about just how effective they are. Instagram got a really nice multi-billion-dollar purchase from Facebook, right? Pinterest seems to be doing pretty well. Even these startups like Snapchat that are worth hundreds of millions, more into the billions right now, very picture and video-centric type platforms, because pictures and videos and images are very easy for consumers to consume. We can digest a picture a lot easier than a 1,200-word article, right? So 3M did a study and found that visuals are processed 60,000 times faster in our brains than text is. I mean, we know pictures, we've always heard, hey, a picture can tell 1,000 words. Well, in fact, 60,000 times faster, okay? So if your website is lacking visuals, or your marketing campaigns are lacking visuals, or your email campaigns are lacking really punchy, enticing visuals, it might be time to look at the pictures a little more closely, because people just don't like to waste a lot of time reading stuff if they can get the message in a short video or a quick illustration. Infographics, right? Infographics have been very successful in engaging customers. So we'll provide an example here today from a project we did for one of our other clients. And one thing that we're excited to reveal to you today are actually some insights that we gathered from the promotion of this actual webinar. We love doing webinars. We've done webinars for years, and we're always looking to improve on how many people register and show up to our webinars and the value that they gain from those. So we'll actually share with you some insights from our own marketing campaign of this webinar in a moment. Before we do, here's work that we did for the Southeast Dairy Association. We've worked with several dairy associations nationwide, you know, the folks behind the old Got Milk ads. So, you know, dairy, it's an association. They don't sell milk per se. You know, they're funded by the farmers and the families of the farmers. And their top priority is to educate consumers on the ins and outs of dairy, the pros and cons, and just to overcome, you know, some of those negative perceptions that some consumers have developed. Well, so we found that, you know, after working with the Dairy Association for some time, we studied the type of content that consumers love the most, the type of content that gets the highest search engine rankings, and the type of content that, you know, is ultimately going to get high response rates to their email campaigns and engage people on their website. They had a lot of videos about, you know, farmers and families and you know, how milk is produced and stuff is produced and how well the farmers treat their cows and so forth. But we found that most consumers really care about recipes above and beyond everything else, particularly around the holidays. They love, you know, cheese dip recipes, pizza recipes, how to make homemade ice cream, all of those. And one of the highest searched for terms is the term healthy recipes or healthy dairy recipes. So if you're looking for, you know, a recipe on artichoke dip, dairy wants to be found. If you're looking for a recipe on, you know, cheese dip or cheese nachos, dairy industry would love for their recipe to be found by you and ultimately end up on their website. So we put high quality pictures of those dairy recipes front and center on their website and made them a feature in their email campaigns, and wow, their traffic went up big time. And also spotlighting some of their speakers, you know, because dairy works very closely with the NFL. A lot of NFL players go to schools and talk to children, and we thought, well, let's put their pictures on the website. So they got a lot of value from that, and of course we applied those findings across all the dairy industries. Now, moving on to actually engaging the customer, you know, what do you do once you have the customer on the site, on the landing page, or you have them, you know, you have an email list, and now it's time to actually, you know, get them to take some type of action, right? We've got their attention, now what? So one of the big trends we identified is, of course, responsive design. Now, we labeled this responsive design 2.0 because responsive design as an idea certainly isn't new. We've done plenty of webinars on responsive design. Many other companies have as well. The idea of responsive design is simply based on the notion that today's consumers demand a consistent online experience across all of their devices. And when I say demand, well, they can't really tell you what to do, right? But if you don't provide them with a good experience, they simply go somewhere else. They find what they're looking for at a competitor's website, or they'll find workarounds, right? They'll Google somebody else or find a different source. So, you know, we really do need to consider what consumers demand. You know, for those relatively new to the concept of responsive design, or just need a quick recap, if you need to share this with somebody or explain what this means to some of your peers, a very simple definition is this. Responsive design, an approach to web creation that makes use of flexible layouts, flexible images, and cascading style sheet media queries. Sounds a little technical. It's a good definition to start with, but really the goal of responsive design is to build websites that fluidly change based on user screen sizes and their orientation. So the idea is build it once and let the site automatically adjust itself on smartphones and tablets and even on televisions now, so that we don't have to create different versions for every screen size. As you know, one thing to keep in mind, it's insights that you know, Google published a little while ago, is that consumers take a multi-device path to purchase. And this ultimately means that many purchases start with a query on a smartphone. Sometimes they may start with a search on a laptop. Other times people may sit on a sofa and casually browse on their tablet. Where people start and where they end varies from industry to industry. So if you're selling cars, or you're selling mortgages, or you're selling gadgets, it's important to understand where your customers generally engage with your brand first. And a good way to figure that out is to do a deeper dive into your own analytics, because your customer journey may be a little different from someone else's. But the important thing to know is that consumers today do bounce between different devices. They may open an email on their smartphone while they're in a subway or they're on the go, decide, hey, this is an interesting offer. I'm not going to make the purchase right now because I'm not going to dig for my card in traffic. But yeah, I'll look at this later. So they may open an email on their mobile phone, revisit that email on their desktop PC or laptop later, and then sometimes just make that purchase on the tablet. Sometimes it starts, they take a different path. So just knowing this, however, is very important. So that means when we design and we go beyond just responsive design, for a website, we have to consider that if a consumer is opening an email on a smartphone, or they're visiting a landing page on their smartphone, we can't simply squeeze 10 pounds of content into a small 3-pound screen, right? We have to consider the type of content that is most appropriate for that smaller screen. And when we design content, even the layouts of the content need to be taken into consideration across different types of channels. I mean, consider social media, for instance. LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest and Facebook all have different types of layouts. The images are slightly different sizes and different dimensions. So if you're running a campaign, and we took this into consideration when we promoted this webinar, when you're running a campaign, those assets need to be properly created across all of those different channels. Does it put a bigger burden on a designer? Of course it does. But it's very important to keep this in mind. The big takeaway for when we say responsive design 2.0 is the fact that it's not just a matter of reducing the screen size to fit into a smaller footprint like a smartphone. It's important to also reduce the idea to a smaller footprint, meaning that the message that you're trying to convey to that user needs to be thought of in terms of context, of user intent. So take let's for instance, consider you're a bank and you're a branch and you're trying to get people, to your local branch. Well, you don't necessarily want to take the entire history of the bank and who the executives are and the mission statement and try to squeeze everything into a small smartphone. Consider, what are people really searching for when they're on a smartphone? What do we want when we're on a phone compared to what we want when we're on a bigger screen? Most of us want to know how to get where we're going. So, directions, mapping, that's important to us, right? Finding hours of operation. Is this branch open? Sure, that's important. Let's not make consumers hunt for that. Let's put that front and center. The closest branch, certainly the hours of operation. What about the phone number? If I have a question, make the phone number easy to find. So that's all content. And if you make it difficult for people to find what they're looking for on these small devices, that's what we call friction. That's what frustrates people. So let's take context into consideration and ask ourselves that no matter what type of business you are, what type of content should be displayed on a small screen compared to a big screen. So we do need to adapt the design for these different screen sizes and resolutions in order to properly engage those customers, because frustration leads to abandonment. And that's when we see those really high bounce rates. If you look at your analytics and you're seeing massive bounce rates on your home page or landing pages, it might be that users simply aren't getting what they're looking for easily. So, what are mobile consumers most likely searching for? As I mentioned, address, phone number, and hours. And here's an example, of how Google displays content on the smartphone, and how a website should display if someone's looking for an address, a phone number, or hours. So I would encourage you to pull up your own website on your own smartphone, but don't stop there. Pull it up on somebody else's smartphone. Look at it on somebody else's device, like an iPad. Step outside of your box. If you're browsing on a laptop all day long, it doesn't mean that everyone else is. And consider, if you're a customer, are you able to quickly and easily find what you're looking for, and is it intuitive enough? So for our webinar, of course, we took all of these factors into consideration, and we designed different layouts for landing pages, for our home page, for different social channels, and we considered how the promotion actually looked across all different screen sizes. And we asked ourselves, well, will it actually matter? Will we get higher conversion rates? Will we attract more people by doing all this extra work? Because it is extra work, of course, and it does require multiple people to collaborate. The email campaign, if you received one, probably looked like the image on the left. The landing page probably looked like the image you're seeing in the middle, and then even our own homepage, we decided to make this webinar a big hero image right on our homepage and get people to click that register button. It's been very successful for us, and you're here, so that's an indicator that it helped you, right? So, also take that under consideration with your campaigns. The number 6 under engagement is design a high-quality user experience. Now, that may sound a little metaphorical, by high quality. I mean, who sets out to design a low-quality experience? But to get a little bit more specific in terms of what quality actually means, is that consider the fact that it takes about half a second for users to form an opinion about a website. That's it. They form an initial opinion in about a half second. And that is once the site loads, assuming it loads very quickly. And visuals make a huge impact on a user's opinion. High-quality pictures and high-quality illustrations and high-quality videos draw customers in. There's a reason why companies spend millions and millions of dollars on high-quality TV commercials, because they know high-quality visuals and images are very engaging and draw those customers in. It also lends you credibility. Now, there are instances where a handheld, a picture with a handheld camera posted on a social channel like Instagram is actually a better idea, because people want authenticity, and if you're taking pictures of your team and pictures around the office and things you're doing on the go, you don't necessarily have to have a professional photographer follow you around everywhere. But here we're referring to product images or services. So, consider that quality does matter. In fact, Stanford did a study. The Stanford Web Credibility Research Study showed that 75% of users make judgments about a company's credibility based on its web design. 75%. So investing in quality web design, whether it's designing an email campaign, a website, or landing pages, is really a good investment, because that's how a lot of people judge the company. And quote, they say, "We find that people quickly evaluate a website by visual design alone. When designing your site, pay attention to layout, typography, images, and consistency issues, and more." So the visuals really do matter, and so layout, typography, images, all of that stuff, great investment as far as driving engagement. And one thing that is really being twilighted is this: stock photos. We're predicting the death of stock photos. And by death, I don't mean we'll never, ever see them again. But as far as creating a high-quality marketing campaign that gets attention and engages users effectively, that's where these stock photos really need to take a back seat. Instead, you're a lot better off avoiding these stock photos. You've probably seen some of these folks, right? And kudos to the to the models, because they're very popular. But we've seen this, this old guy, probably hundreds of times, right? These images, we know these aren't real people. And that just takes away from the authenticity and is sort of a turnoff to customers. So generally what we do is we look at each client individually, and we'll showcase one of our clients. This is a site we developed for Wake Forest Innovations, a division of Wake Forest Medical Center in North Carolina. Fantastic client, love working with them. An amazing team up there, brilliant people. And when we helped them design their new website, we said, let's get rid of all the stock photo stuff. And there's so much wonderful stuff going on at your organization. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested in revitalizing their life science park, and let's highlight the actual scientists and doctors and the place itself. If you go to Wake Forest Innovations, you can see the entire website, and the increase in engagement it drove was absolutely amazing. The feedback they got was fantastic. We picked up over 5, maybe 6 now industry awards, including best in class. I mean, they led the entire industry with their awards. We could do an entire webinar just on them. And again, I'll use this example again with the Southeast Dairy Association. We used real pictures of real stuff, real athletes, real people, and it saved money. You didn't have to buy and license all these stock photos. So, real images are around us all day long. So let's be more authentic. And as far as converting, when it comes to converting those visitors into leads and sales, what are the big trends? Well, the number one big trend is what I've been hinting about all along, and that's to eliminate friction. Friction is bad. Friction is bad in most things. It's bad in automotive, right? We don't like friction in an engine. It seizes. So when we refer to friction in marketing, it means frustration. Customers don't like to be frustrated. Frustration and confusion we define as friction. And so taking a closer look at what frustrates and confuses people, well, when we came up with this short list, we looked at ourselves first. We said, okay, do we love slow loading web pages? No. Do we like it when content is hard to read? Whether some designer decided to get fancy and use really light, great fonts. No, we don't like it when it's hard to read. We don't like a lot of page clutter. We don't like it when it's difficult to know what the company wants us to do. Unclear call to actions. All of these things are frustrating and confusing and should be eliminated in the marketing process. Definitely all of these should be major considerations when we're thinking web design, landing page, email design. Is it clear? Will it load quickly? Will people know what to do? So back to our webinar, when we had great results with our campaigns last year. Fantastic results, in fact, conversion rates and the number of people that attended. And if you were, thank you very much for sticking with us again in 2016. Always looking to improve things. And so we started with our landing page. We thought, well, okay, here to the left was an example of the landing page that we would have used for this campaign if we stuck to our old model. And then we decided, well, looking at our own insights, we found that over 60% of our emails are open on mobile devices. So a lot of people, a lot of our customers and attendees look at our campaigns on our mobile devices, and they don't read that much. They don't have that much patience. So we decided, well, we gotta walk the walk, right? So we tested a second version, a shorter version of our landing page, and noticed that we moved the registration box to the top, where we thought more people would be able to see it, and the outcome was a 133% increase in conversions. So, I'm really proud of the work that we did and everyone on our team who helped make this happen. And the turnout to this webinar is proof. And as far as conversions go, testing is absolute key. We must test and always push forward and consider these new trends like mobile and tablets, right? Next, in increasing conversions, our number 8 trend is social proof. And by social proof, we mean that, advertising is a funny thing, and, companies and brands and organizations have a big challenge today, and that simply is that their customers and users don't trust them anymore. That we place higher value on opinions of people we don't even know than advertisers. People just don't trust ads anymore, which is why, Amazon's ratings and reviews are so popular. It's amazing. Ridiculous even that we trust strangers more than we trust global brands and Fortune 500 companies, but that's just how it is. So incorporating social proof into design and into marketing is an absolute must. Testimonials, ratings and reviews, case studies, any type of awards, photos of staff and customers, all of those things that demonstrate to a customer that we're being honest, we're being truthful, and that they're in good hands with us. So, of course, this is content, and it needs to be planned. And if it doesn't exist, it needs to be created. Showcasing customer reviews works, and here's an example of how well it worked when we did this with one of our clients. They saw a 216% jump in traffic after we started highlighting customer reviews. Now, you'd say, how did that happen? Well, we incorporated those reviews into the website, into a testimonials page, and it so happens that it started ranking very high in search, and many of their users started sharing that page with their colleagues and friends, and as a result, traffic went up, and when traffic goes up, conversions are right next in line. So, if you have ratings and reviews, by all means, do share them. Next, offer a very clear call to action. Don't make people think, right? It's terrible when we're confused about what a company wants us to do. And again, we'll use our webinar as an example. We wanted to make sure that it was very, very clear to people how to sign up, how to register, and what we want them to do. So we put the call to action right smack in the middle on the website, and we made sure that it appeared right on the screen on the mobile phone. Is this a big breakthrough? Well, not necessarily, but making small incremental changes can sometimes have massive outcomes. And in the example of this campaign, a 133% increase from last year. And last year, I will say, with our webinars was very successful. So, we're quite delighted. Imagine about 133% increase in response rates would mean to your campaigns. So, number 10, we're going to say website performance and speed is an absolute focal point this year, or should be. And we've said this before in some of our prior webinars, and I think it's a good reminder to say mobile users have half the bandwidth and are twice as impatient. And that's because, number one, they're on the go, on their feed, in the car, in the train, and bandwidth sometimes suffers. Things don't load very quickly. So if a web page takes any longer than 3 seconds to load, attention spans start to diminish and people get frustrated. 81% of mobile searches are driven by speed and convenience alone. I mean, consider this, when you click a link on a mobile device and it doesn't load, how quickly do you leave? Most of us don't have a lot of patience. And most of this is caused by mobile configuration errors. On smartphones, smartphones see a 68% traffic loss if a site isn't properly configured on mobile. And all of this needs to be a consideration on the front end and should go into the design agenda, testing how quickly the site loads. Google recommends 3 seconds or less. Now, that may be a tall order, but certainly a worthwhile goal to work towards. So my suggestion is measure how quickly your site loads on your desktop PC at your office right when you're off this call today. Then, though, pull it up on your smartphone. Then ask some of your colleagues to pull up the site on their smartphone. Why? Because they may be on different carriers. They may have different devices. They may have a very different experience. Go to cyber cafes or go to the Microsoft or Apple store at your local mall and pull up your website from there and see how quickly it loads. And you may find a very different experience from different locations and across different devices. And then optimize from there. And if your site loads lightning quick across all devices from all different locations, man, you're going to get higher engagement and conversions. So if you're unsure and you'd like you'd like us to take a quick peek, here's something that we've offered last year, we're offering again this year, just a free analysis of your website. We'll check your site speed, we'll see how mobile friendly it is, we'll do a technical SEO analysis, and we'll give you a report. We turn it around usually in about 1 business day. And how is this useful? Well, usually a report like this is something that you can share with your colleagues, your bosses. It's something that you can keep filed away. And if nothing else, just to validate that that any money that you may have invested in redesign last year worked, or know that it was a good investment. We'll even give you a complimentary 30-minute consultation if you'd like it, and explain this report and address any questions. It's also a good opportunity to ask any questions that we didn't address on a call today. You can certainly email us, but if you take advantage of this free website performance analysis, then we actually have something that we can base our conversation on. And of course, we'll speak to you on the phone. If you'd like to stop by our office at any time, you can schedule a meeting with us as well. So I hope this webinar today was useful. We're coming in just under an hour as we try to do. And if you have any questions, email us at info@aismedia.com. We'll ask you to complete just a quick survey right at the end of this webinar today. Please take a moment and tell us if this was valuable to you. We love all positive feedback. If you have any complaints, we'd like to hear about that as well. And I'd love to hear any suggestions from you in terms of topics for future webinars or anything else that you think ought to be included in this topic. So, with that, thank you very much for attending today. Look for future invites to future webinars, and we are going to work our hardest to get this recorded and live on our blog and in our social channels ASAP today. If not today, look for it tomorrow. And then we look forward to your comments, and feel free to share it with anybody in the world that you like. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic 2016. I hope this will help you get there.